Hey, everybody, this is Tim Hinton. I'm here with the wonderful Keith Potter. How are you, Keith?
Good. How you doing?
Okay, so you'll get used to this back and forth with the mic thing. Okay, so we're at Boston Camp. We're at Lakewood Ranch High School somewhere in Florida. It's hot. It's April. And so we're going to talk about what's the Corps doing in April. Like, this is great that I get to interview you, so thank you for taking time. I know you're super busy. What's the Corps doing here at April Camp? What's the main goal of this being here?
Well, for me, I mean, I think it's probably a little bit different for everybody, all the different parts of the Corps. For me, the excitement is, kind of all of the anchor points that we've made throughout the winter, from inception of the idea to recruiting and piecing everything together. And now we start to move from foundation to actually, putting the walls up and designing the inside of the building, so to speak. But what a lot of the other groups are doing, like the Color Guard, is auditioning, because they're not really part of the winter camps that the percussion and brass have been part of.
Most of them have been performing with Winter Guard groups or doing other things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I just went in there and saw them, and they're learning this ridiculously complicated rifle thing. Of course, that's to me, who's not like a rifle guru. But it's interesting. They're choosing them. So how much of the show is put together already at this point in April? Like, how far along are you in the process of putting it together?
Well, the show arc and the selections and the repertoire and basically the pacing and the timing, that's all done. I think there's still we'll learn one more production this weekend. I think they're learning it today and tomorrow. And then there's one small part at the end of the show to learn between now and when we move in May.
So most of the music is written, I know, certainly to be tweaked or dealt with, but most of the production is sort of put together already.
Yeah, the music's put together. We have a good half, maybe more than half, maybe 3/4 of the drill kind of mapped out. Of course, once we get to Castleton, then we'll get out there and we'll produce it and move things around and make it more production based, more choreography based. So some of that will be direct from what we've worked on all winter, and some of it will be massaged to fit the production.
So do the musicians know most of the show already? I think you said like 9 minutes is pretty solid already. Do they know that music already?
Yeah, I think the percussion, because it's the same deal with the Winter Guard, they have indoor percussion all winter. So they didn't do a March camp with us. So
makes sense.
They're probably a song behind. So they're probably learning what the brass learned the month before, and then we'll catch up once we move in. Because I believe, as usual, the percussion moves in before the rest of the Corps. So they'll get caught up.
Well, people may not know that, but they usually get like an extra week, don't they? Something like that?
Yeah. Our schedule is a little bit different this year based on availability and just kind of the way things lay out. So I'm not sure if it's a full week, but it's definitely somewhere between 4 and 7 days.
Yeah, some extra time. Okay. So then this weekend in April is exciting because you're starting to put some pieces together. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like I said, we'll put stuff that I've already heard the brass play. We'll put the percussion into that this week. And then, like I said, the brass will then learn one more piece that the percussion won't be involved with this weekend.
Is this the first time the musicians will have heard the music with the drums and the brass together?
No, because they did January, February.
Okay, so they played some of it then.
Yeah, they played the first half then.
Okay.
So once we got into March, we were kind of in the second half of the show.
Okay, so they also told me that they learned some drill this morning. So what's going on with that part of it? How much of the show are they actually trying to get on the field this camp?
Mostly, I mean, of course, it's great for the design team to see kind of how things lay out, again, without producing it, and really kind of, again, we really use what we do with drill in the winter as kind of a starting point. Like, let's just get kind of things in the right area, and there are certainly some drill effects that we can create in that time. But really, when we get to Castleton, we kind of break the drill apart and make it a little bit more conducive to whatever the goals of the production are. And that might not always align with just the geography of how we put things together, right? There might be something that we want to communicate more, or something that can be a little freer, or we want to isolate a soloist, or those kind of things where we kind of push and pull what was the written word. It doesn't stay like that. So what we did today was kind of more about just having the members go through the process of how we learn drill, and how they react with the drum major, and how do we start off a rep with the metronome, and like all that stuff is more about what this drill time is.
Okay, so they're sort of really learning the process of how to learn the drill, how everything's going to work.
Right.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Now, when we come back in a month at Castleton, we'll probably learn this again. It'll go faster because we've already done it once. So that also helps the process.
And they may not even have all been exactly in the right spots today, right? Is my understanding.
Right. We may end up making some switches based on personnel that needs to happen somewhere else in the show. That kind of thing will continue to grow.
Very interesting. So it's exciting to start putting things together in April. What else do you do as far as, when do you explain? The Corps already knows about the show, what the concept is. How much of that have you told them yet?
We don't really talk to them about the production until we move in. I'll do a night when I'm there, like a Saturday night or something like that, where we'll break it down and explain section by section. So they will have already learned some things, and I'm sure that now with the repertoire, they probably are starting to like piece things together.
Get some ideas, yeah.
But there's nothing official that we talk about until we're all there at Castleton, and we try to align it with whenever the Corps is going to announce the show, so that the members aren't for a long time going, oh, we haven't heard anything about this. But we try to time it like that so that we can have them all in one place. And like I said, with the Guard, they're still auditioning, so it wouldn't even make sense necessarily right now to talk about that.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And so there's going to come a time when you're going to announce the show to the Corps, you're going to announce it to the world, and you and I hopefully are going to have another conversation where we talk about it more in depth, but we certainly can't do that now in April. And you said you're still formulating the process of how you're going to explain it, right? Like, I know you know what it is, but writing that down or laying that out, it's got to be hard to do. Put it into words, sort of?
Yeah. It's not that it's hard to put into words. It's that you want to make it as concise. First of all, if it takes a lot of explaining, it's probably not user friendly, for the audience. So I don't think it's going to take a lot of words. It's just, how can you use the fewest amount of words and give the most information?
That makes sense to me.
We're just not finished with that part.
Right. And obviously, it's like sort of crafting a poem. You know what you want to say, but you want to make sure you choose exactly the right words and lay it out. So that makes sense to me. Yeah, I didn't mean to insinuate you didn't know what the show was.
No, I just think it's like any kind of consumer situation where, the consumer wants to get as much information without the with the least amount of work. So they kind of know what they're getting into. And so that's all the crafting really is like, how can you give some good information and not give too little information? Okay,
so I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and you have the right to say, I can't tell you that, or I'm not going to answer that. So we'll see what happens. So I do want to ask you, I feel like the shows the last couple of years, you had this team at Boston. I've just been so in love with what it was. Like, it was so accessible, so crowd friendly. The story, the emotions you were trying to portray was so clear. So is that, I'm assuming that's, like, how did you do that? And are you planning to do that again? I'm sure you're, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I feel like it was super crowd friendly, super clear. I feel like I knew exactly what the emotion was you wanted me to get. I don't know what my question is. I don't know if I'm going to ask you how you do that, or if that's a goal again. Is that a goal of you? Is that a goal of the team? Is that something that has to do with the Corps?
I think with any design team, there's a brand, or a kind of a stylistic approach. I mean, you can look at teams around all the Corps, and you can almost identify. And it's not to say that people do the same thing, but you can kind of identify a style that team is comfortable in.
Right.
And maybe that's a style of that particular design team. Maybe it's a style of that particular drum corps. And then, chicken or the egg question, I can't answer that, But
you've established sort of a personality for Boston the last couple of years that I really like. Was that a conscious thing, or is it just sort of where the design team ended up?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of design team here is, I mean, of course, everybody's different personality, from the loudest, craziest person to the quietest, most reserved person. But it seems collectively that there's a real kind of passion, fiery kind of human quality to the design team. Maybe a little bit more. I guess I would use the word passionate, and that's not to say that that's something that's just unique to what we're doing. There are a whole lot of passionate people out there designing a lot of great things.
I know, but like there's that passion and that sort of personality that you've given to Boston the last couple of years. Was that a conscious, like, this is where we want this to go, or was it just that's where the design team ended up?
Yeah, no, it's a conscious thing that we were interested in. This kind of, whenever we sit down and we talk, we look at, and we talked about this a lot last year. Like, we took a lot of themes from Lost and Castaway, and that idea of being stranded, and how that also played into like spiritual being lost and being found and salvation, and so there's just a real human suffering and redemption quality to that. I think when we did the Witch show, kind of a similar thing, the idea of like being wrongfully accused, and that kind of like, what does that feel like to be persecuted or to be the persecutor, or, so what we're doing this year is, I would say, in the same style. It's not certainly not the same themes, but you would be able to look to literature, some very old literature, and to some very current film and theater, and see some of these themes that we thought were something that resonates with people, and something that we thought we could bring to life. Because that's the other part. Like, there's a lot of ideas, but the scale of drum corps and band, it's very similar. It's one thing to have an idea or an approach. It's another thing to like, well, how do you depict that with marching and playing and color guard and all of that? So,
but there's like, I don't know, it's like the way that you've presented the last two shows, and I'm assuming what you're going to do again this year, it's sort of like, it's like fresh mountain air. You know what I mean? Like, there's a clarity and a purity to what the emotion was that came off the field to me that was just, I thought, exceptional.
Well, thank you.
So I guess it's something about the team and the way you're doing it. I just didn't know if that was like, we want this to be what Boston is, or if it's just sort of where you have gone.
No, I think part of it is, first of all, can't ignore that the performers are bringing a huge part of that freshness that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Because they have to deliver with clarity, in sound and in sight, to get an idea across. The idea has to be tangible enough to deliver it. So those two things in conjunction is kind of, I think it's kind of where we settled. One, we like the approach. It seems to work for us. And, and we all work other places too. And so it's not, you wouldn't necessarily see the other places that we work in this style. And so that's, I guess to answer your question, it is kind of a uniquely Boston thing, and not a stylistic preference of any one or two designers.
Right. I don't know. I just think you've arrived at this really cool place of like the feel and the personality of the core, and I just really love it. So I can't wait to see what you do. All right. Thanks for talking to me.
Sure.
Now you need to get to work putting the show together, right? I'll let you get back to work. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Find other interviews and videos from top DCI designers, instructors, and marchers, behind-the-scenes videos, interviews, and podcasts from winter camps, spring training, traveling during the season, and performances, all at marchingartseducation.com/DCI-2019. The Marching Roundtable is proud to be an official media partner of Drum Corps International.